Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo Sam Monson live on YouTube. Coming at you from the Mike Vrabel is in the Bill Belichick Coaching Tree studio. All brought to you by FanDuel. And the draft coverage for 2026, it's over, Sam. We've done it all. We've done all we can. We've exhausted all 2026 draft coverage. So we should do 2000.
It's on to 27, baby.
It's not exactly Mock Draft Monday for 2027, but we'll go through the top prospects. That's all the look-ahead mock drafts are anyway, or who are the names?
And we may have a supplemental draft because...
Should we grind out some supplemental mocks?
All of a sudden, a guy may end up getting himself banned from the NCAA.
We'll talk about
what
that.
What do you do when you're banned from the NCAA? You jump to the NFL.
We will break that down as well. The potential for the first supplemental draft since 2019.
There you go.
In my head, I had thought they just straight up got rid of it.
I know. I was trying to tell you. They just.
And we were arguing about it the other night. I was like, no, they haven't had opportunities.
Right.
So we might have Brendan Sorsby available in the supplemental draft. We'll have something else to talk about sometime this spring and summer. But let's start with this, Sam. You doing all right? Everything good?
Yeah. Mustang's in pieces in the garage, but it's all right.
Have you been documenting this for the people?
A little bit. Tyler,
full
for anyone that's been a long-term listener, Tyler, our former producer, now producer extraordinaire for Pro Football Network, he was angrily telling me that I had to be filming all of this. Problem is, I need my phone to give me YouTube guides of how to do things, so it's difficult to both record and watch YouTube telling me how to do things.
Yeah.
I was correct in assuming that the biggest problem would be unbolting the seats, in large part because they appear to be aftermarket and therefore don't have the correct bolt size on them, which meant that I didn't know what the correct bolt size was, which meant that I needed to spend an hour or so working through every possible socket, until they were out. Once they were out, the rest of it came apart relatively easily, but then I kept uncovering things that needed to be done, and so it's become longer than it's anyway. I'm now reaching the point where today I can begin to put things together as opposed to taking them apart.
Please document as much as you can.
It's a pain in the ass, I've got to tell you.
All right, you ready to go?
Yeah, what were we going to?
We're going to look ahead to the 2027 NFL draft. So let's start with this. We talked a lot throughout the 26 process, the draft that just was.
Yes.
As far as, we felt weak and, not many high-end players and the whole deal. Well, next year's the opposite. And it's not just the quarterbacks, right? It's not just, hey, next year's quarterbacks coulda, woulda, shoulda been.
Well, that's the only reason I think, because we're not really a full-time draft-centric college football-focused show. And usually once we're done with the draft, we're done, right? We're on to various other NFL team building off-season whatnots. But this, I think, is the first year where it's like the general feeling of, well, next year's draft may actually be true. Because even I'm aware of like half a dozen legitimate prospects to come along next year. And not just like really good college football players, but guys that basically from the moment they stepped onto campus were like, oh, look at this dude. Like Jeremiah Smith, for example, is one name we'll be bringing up, the Ohio State wide receiver. Jeremiah Smith was making first-round Ohio State wide receivers look like chumps the moment he arrived on campus. It was like, oh, look at these spring game?
Yeah.
Spring game, whatever, spring game practices. Jeremiah Smith is like, oh, look at this guy. He's ridiculous. He looks like Julio Jones out there. The second he arrives at Ohio State, and he's been like that basically the moment, for his entirety of his college football career, and then next season is the season that he's allowed to enter the NFL. And there's more than one guy like that. So it is worth spending a minute this week and just being like, hey, keep an eye on this year's crop because it might be ridiculous.
Because it's a combination of, look, there's been 4 first-round quarterbacks over the last 2 years. That's a low number, coming off of 6 in 2024. So just the law of averages, there should be more quarterbacks coming out next year. In addition to, there are some names, and there's at least some potential. Now, there's a lot of potential out there, right? We know that doesn't always work because last year at this time we thought, hey, next year there could be 4 or 5 first-round quarterbacks. They didn't develop. A lot of those same names are back in the pool. But the 2024 recruiting class was out of this world, with guys like Jeremiah Smith that you talked about and some others. So we'll go through all of that. Let's start with quarterback. Here's the other thing. we did have a fun little secret PFF reunion the other day.
A wake.
We did have a wake. It was more of a wake, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, food was served.
Yeah. It was nice food.
There was no casket or anything like that, but
no.
We all got together. A bunch of us at the former boss, Neil's house.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, people flew in. It was great. Fun was had for a wake. And we were just talking. I was thinking out loud. We started talking ball, right? Like, next year's draft class looks great. And I thought out loud while Mike Renner was at the table with us, I was like, man, how many prospects, how many times are we going to say this guy would have been the top prospect at his position in this draft class? And Mike says, Steve, I've got an article already up about that over at cbssports.com. So we'll reference that article because it's most of the top positions, the top guy that you're going to be talking about, you're going to say, well, these edges were better than David Bailey, and this wide receiver is better than the top wide receiver, and this corner is better than the top corner. So it's almost every top position. It's over at cbssports.com. Let's start with quarterback, though, and what we're looking at for next year. So that was also part of, the ratings were down a little bit for the draft. There was no QB talk. There was no Shadur drama.
Yeah.
Next year, there should be more QB talk. And the already potentially expected number one quarterback is Arch Manning from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We're already there. Again.
As he
was last year. So let me just read some names. Let me just start with this. I'll read some names. The consensus board right now, we're already there. The consensus board right now, it's very early, right? This is not who's all going in the first round here. Arch Manning, Dante Moore from Oregon, who decided to go back to school, would have been in the first round this year.
Yep.
Julian Sayin from Ohio State. He'll be another interesting evaluation as a redshirt sophomore. Darian Mensah, transferring from Duke to Miami. CJ Carr as a redshirt sophomore at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Lenoris Sellers is still on the list here from South Carolina, who we thought might develop and has a ton of tools. He's in the mix here. Drew Mestamaker as a redshirt sophomore. North Texas. The guy dominated last year from North Texas. Now he's at Oklahoma State, though. So he went with his head coach to Oklahoma State. The next name on the list is Brendan Sorsby from Texas Tech. There's a chance he's not going to be in next year's draft, and he might be in the supplemental draft. Then we have Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss. There was a minute we thought he could be coming out this year. Could he sneak in the back end of the first? Jaden Mayava.
Threw his way back into college. You don't see that often.
You're right. He talked his way back in. Sorsby's trying to talk his way back in.
Yeah.
And then the other name that I'll mention, well, I'll give you a couple other names, actually. I'll give you multiple because it's getting crazy here. There's so many names. DJ Lagway from Baylor. When you were going back to this 2024 class, Lagway was supposed to be the top quarterback coming out next year. Well, he had an awful season last year at Florida. He's now at Baylor, but he's got a ton of tools. We'll see if he can figure it out. And I'll just throw a couple more out there. Josh Hoover from Indiana via TCU. He's primed to have another breakout season. I know Renner really likes him. And then the other name getting some buzz before he got arrested this weekend, Drake Lindsey, the quarterback out of Minnesota. Already see an early buzz on him. And don't forget, we'd already started conversations about John Mateer, the quarterback out of Oklahoma. Nico Iamaleava at UCLA. I mean, there are just names. CJ Bailey from NC State. There are a lot of names, and you might be Steve. You're just listing all the college football quarterbacks.
Right.
All you need is 5 of these guys to really emerge, and we're talking a high-end quarterback draft next year.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, though.
Yes.
First of all, because some of those quarterbacks you listed, excuse me, are guys that were expected to already break out, didn't, and in fact, in some cases, went backwards. If they have like one really good year next year, will that completely rehabilitate their prospect profile, and it doesn't matter that they went backwards to begin with and they were garbage for a while? Like, can a DJ Lagway have an amazing year and suddenly it's like, oh, he's a top 5 pick again?
Oh, I think he can because he's got great tools. He's got
like, do people just arm. Are we at the stage now where people can just write off giant swathes of a guy's college career if they finish with that one fantastic year?
I think so. I mean, I think we're in a world. Look, there was a point in time when I thought the second Jameis Winston stepped onto the field as a redshirt freshman, he looked like a future number one. And he lived up to it. Like, he was unreal as a redshirt freshman at Florida State. Same thing happened with Andrew Luck a few years prior, right? As soon as Andrew Luck stepped on the field as a freshman, you're like, that dude's going number one. overall in a couple of years, and he waited and he went as a senior. I think we're just we're trying to see those patterns again. So you watch a Lagway, and I'm guilty as well. I mean, you see Lagway and you see some of the plays that he made as a true freshman at Florida, and you're like, well, that's a future number 1 overall pick, of course. Dante Moore was honestly the same. When he stepped onto the field at UCLA as a true freshman, looked great early on, then he struggled, then he transferred, sat out, and he had a good year last year, his second full year starting at Oregon, but it didn't finish strong. And because it didn't finish strong, he goes back to school. So I think we're all guilty of projecting this development path on young quarterbacks, and it doesn't always hit, and you're like, oh, they're overhyped. And it's like, well, sometimes you could tell right away. So yeah, I think if any of these guys have a monster final season, Lagway, Arch,
and then
they'll be fine.
My second question is, if Arch Manning was in fact named Arch Mosby and had no, familial legacy to his name whatsoever, would anybody be talking about him as a number 1 overall pick at the moment?
I don't know that he'd be number 1 overall. I think he'd be in the first round conversation. I think he would still be a highly...
Because I got to say, I've watched a few Arch Manning games and have yet to be impressed. I've seen the high school highlights as he was coming along, and it's like, wow, he's Peyton Manning, but he's got the athleticism of his dad who played wide receiver, right? He's actually, for anyone that doesn't know, Arch Manning is not, a Peyton Manning son, an Eli Manning son. He's a Cooper Manning son. And Cooper Manning was Peyton's wide receiver at one point before he ended up not injured, I think, and didn't continue his football career. So he's got the athleticism of a wide receiver's lineage, but obviously the Manning family legacy of quarterbacking. And his high school highlights were nuts. It was like Peyton Manning, but running around and making athletic plays, and he was bigger than everybody. His college tape has not been that good, in my opinion. I've not watched every game of his or whatever, but every time I've seen him, I'm like, all right, the tools are still there, but he's not notably any more impressive than Quinn Ewers or whatever, who himself was not that impressive at Texas. I'm not seeing it yet. Now, can he put it together? Sure, but are we just assuming that at some point he will become this prospect that everyone assumes he is because of the Manning legacy, or is there more to his tape that I'm not seeing yet?
I think there's little doubt that the name bumps him up a little bit. He's not, you mentioned the name Quinn Ewers, though. It's not like he's the only prospect that's come in with hype.
Right, who himself was the perfect graded recruit or whatever it was.
Quinn Ewers
which also made no sense to me.
Quinn Ewers graduated high school not a semester early, an entire year early to go to Ohio State, and he never lived up to the, well, it depends on how you look at it. He never lived up to the number 1 overall hype as far as being this legendary college quarterback. He ended up having a pretty nice college career, but he ends up as a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the name Manning. So maybe Arch is bumped up by that a little bit. And so I'll give you the quick synopsis on Arch and where we are with him. You mentioned the high school tape, and we got a lot of snarky people online, and it's like, how did you not see this? Him being overwhelmed. He's playing this awful Texas competition in high school. He looks like a man amongst boys. Of course, he's struggling in his first full season in the SEC, and so I would almost say that works in his favor. Because he is big with a good arm, and he's very athletic. He's a very athletic, very good runner, and so I think the development curve is fair, right? Did he have high expectations? Absolutely. So it started last year. They play Ohio State week 1. They could barely get on the scoreboard until late, and he's all over the place. But toward everybody's making fun of the kid.
Well, because last year, again, he was supposed to be, this time a year ago, everyone was like, well, Arch Manning's the number 1 overall pick next year, right? He was the Fernando Mendoza. He was supposed to be the guy that everyone was jockeying for if they were going to have a bad NFL season. A month into the year, it's like, this guy's terrible. He's not even, he's awful. And then sometime late in the year, his image seemed to have rehabilitated itself, and it was like, Arch Manning's the guy again. And, he ends up going back to college, et cetera. And honestly, he may go back again because the Mannings spend 4 years.
I would say, if you gave him, 28 to 30 more starts in college at Texas, yeah, I could see him being
of all the quarterbacks,
really good prospect in 2028.
Of all the quarterbacks, I would not write his name in as a lock to be in next year's draft just because of the legacy, the family, They tend to stay in college, and admittedly, even if Texas has got 5-star recruits breathing down his neck to take the starting job, Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Manning family cachet has got enough to keep him in a job for
he'll
a
be
while.
yeah, no, I mean, if you give him 2 more years starting at Texas, I mean, that's a lot.
But like, I don't think the fact that Texas may have recruited somebody is going to move Manning on. You know
No,
what I mean?
I don't think so. I mean, he sat
Unless he's terrible.
Did his time before, and behind yours. So you have the Ohio State game where I was not impressed by his accuracy. I thought he missed some shallow crosses, just some easy stuff that could have cost Texas the game. But he also threw some really nice tight window throws. And so early in the season, he struggled mightily against UTEP. There was this video going around, like, watch this UTEP game, and he's all over the place. May have been his worst game. Then he goes to Florida, and there's a bunch of turnovers in there. Now, the Florida game is quite the hot-button issue. A lot of people who are looking at that game through a scouting lens are like, man, he showed a lot of stuff. He's layering the ball. He's got touch. He's got zip. He can run. But he also kept throwing the ball to the defense,
right,
whether it was caught or not. So that's a big eye of the beholder game for Arch. But he got better down the stretch. He got better. Vanderbilt, Georgia, Arkansas. He got better, made some big plays against A&M in a huge game at the end of the season. My questions with Arch, I still don't think he's throw for throw accurate. I think his ball location's all over the place. And aesthetically, I don't love his front arm. There's something about his front arm, and I think that affects his accuracy.
Ooh. You're not usually a mechanics kind of guy.
It's not an aesthetic thing. It is a little bit, but he's so tight.
As a thrower of objects, you're subject to his throwing
I'm a former professional object thrower, and
Mm-hmm.
I know that the front arm is what counterbalances your back arm, and you want those in sync. And he's so tight here, I think it just puts a lot of pressure on the arm getting to the proper release point. I think that affects his accuracy. Blake Bortles, had a bad front arm, but it was the opposite. His front arm would be flailing. He was a flaily front arm. It was like way over here, right? Arch is like tight.
I hate to see a
He's
flailing
super
front
tight.
armor.
He doesn't have the jazz. You want the jazz fingers coming up, and you want some.
What does his do?
Opposite and equal. Arch.
Yeah.
He's just like against his
tucked
chest
in,
all the way.
Yeah. Like T-Rexy.
Yeah, he's
Tucked in and
T-Rex
gimpy.
front arm. So he's against his chest the whole time. And I think it affects you want to be opposite and equal with your arms and the whole thing. Get Tom House with him. He'll get opposite and equal going. Friend of the show, Tom House. So anyway, that's where I'm at with that. So the arch discussion will be, I think, very Shedeur-like, where there'll be not a lot of nuance to it, right? It'll either be what you ask. It's because his name's Manning.
Mm-hmm.
He's overrated, or of course this guy's great. He's a Manning. I think there'll be some kind of middle ground where I think you see the tools, you see what he's capable of. Texas is going to be loaded this year. They're loading up this year, so it's going to be fun to watch whether he's coming out next year or not.
So Starscream in the chat is asking basically who the Jets should end up picking next year. Do they go quarterback, which is, I think, the assumption, or in this crazy generational draft of all drafts, do you end up going best player available? Like, is a guy like Jeremiah Smith an actual option at number one overall, should they get there?
I think they have to go quarterback. I think what's intriguing about the Jets, and we said this midseason when they made all those trades, the Quinnen Williams trade, the Sauce Gardner trade, they have 3 first-rounders next year. They were looking ahead.
So even if they don't have number one, they've got the ammunition to get to number one, regardless of who it is.
I mean, they're rooting hard against the Colts and the Packers first rounder that they have.
Yeah.
They're rooting hard against those teams. Now, if they end up, the Colts make the playoffs, Packers make the playoffs, and you have 2 picks in the 20s, not as nice. But, I mean, if the Colts end up not having a great season, Daniel Jones coming off his injury, and you've got 2 top 10s, there's a chance you're coming away with a quarterback and one of these. Like, I think there's a chance there's 10 to 12 blue chip players in next year's draft.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's quarterbacks need to develop and come out, and then all of these other players need to come out. Now, if they develop properly, the Dylan Stewarts of the world and Jeremiah Smiths and Cam Coleman's, they're probably coming out. I don't think any level of NIL money or college money is going to lure them to come back. They just need to develop properly. So I think there's a chance the Jets come away with a quarterback, maybe another high-end player, and then another first-rounder, and that's why the Jets are in a really good spot right now.
So who do you think the top quarterback is going to end up being when all is said and done?
If I had to say right now, I'd say Dante Moore from Oregon. He would have been in the top 10 discussion. I thought C.J. Carr from Notre Dame looks really good, but he's young. What's interesting about Carr and Mestamaker.
No relation, by the way, to David and Derek.
No,
the cars that people will
cars.
most imagine. He's
Lloyd
related
Carr.
to Lloyd Carr is his grandfather. So he's that family as opposed to the Derek and David family.
So I would say Dante Moore, CJ Carr are the two that I think come to mind. But then if we'll have this discussion with Carr and Mestamaker, if they're both redshirt sophomores, we'll be having the Ty Simpson the Ty Simpson discussion. These guys only have 15, 18 starts, whatever it is, 2 years starting. If they end up coming out, Moore's going to be the most intriguing one. I thought there was a point halfway through the season where it looked like Dante Moore and Ty Simpson were the two top 10 quarterbacks in the draft before Mendoza truly ascended to where he is. So there's a lot of names, man. Mestamaker, man, keep an eye on him. Let's talk Brendan Sorsby for a second here while we're talking QB.
Wait, one thing before we get to that. I forgot that as a former professional thrower of objects, did you happen to catch Malik Willis's first pitch throwout thing?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Just further proof that pitchers are the best athletes in the world.
Okay.
You take these $30 million, $50 million quarterbacks in Joe Burrow's case. You take these quarterbacks, you put them on the mound, and you let them try to do what we do as the best athletes in the world. And look at what an embarrassment for throwers.
It's off by 10 yards.
Yeah.
I am
he looks like Nuke Lelouch first pitch.
I am continually amazed by professional athletes' inability to throw a baseball in the general vicinity of a guy over a plate. Like, we had this whole thing where it's like, can Sam throw 60 miles an hour, right? Whatever about the speed, my accuracy was pretty decent. Like, I could get it to the guy basically every throw without working on it. Like, I didn't need to spend some time dialing in the accuracy because I hadn't thrown a baseball ever. It's like, it's a ball. There's a guy 60 feet. 60 feet? Is that what it is? This guy's 60 feet over
60 feet, 6 inches.
Okay. It's a ball. There's a guy 60 feet over there. Throw it to him.
Yeah.
Easy. Why does that happen?
I think part of it is they try to get the pitching motion going, and you just kinetic chaining, man. You can't get that kinetic chain going.
People have been, it's different. It's a different thing throwing a football to baseball. Yeah, but not to the point where you should be airmailing it 15 yards away from the guy. Like, it's not that hard.
Oh, that's great.
And again, like, somebody pulled up the video of Patrick Mahomes throwing like miles wide or something. It's not like this is why Malik Willis is not going to work out in Miami. But again, it just breaks my brain. The professional athletes of any description can't throw a ball 60 feet.
It has nothing to do with his prospects as a quarterback. It's just hilarious.
Right.
Mahomes looked like his throw was like 92 miles an hour, by the way. I hadn't seen his first pitch until last.
It was 92?
It looked like. I'm just saying, it looked like he threw that thing.
Well, maybe he did. So that's the one scenario where I can understand where it goes wrong, right? If you tried to like put everything you have in it and you just you tweak it somewhere and that's then it goes away from you. But if you're just throwing it, like a normal pace, I'm not trying to like light up the fastest fastball I've ever gotten. You're just trying to throw the ball to the guy on the over the plate and you miss by 15 yards. I don't understand that.
George W. number 1. Mo Hall wants me to rank all the first pitches by presidents. George W. coming out at 9/11, pumping a strike was pretty sweet.
With presumably a lot of body armor and flak vests and stuff on him.
Realistically,
that's like the West Wing scene. They have to get him to practice with the flak jacket on because that's gonna mess up the motion.
That's right. Realistically though, you have to take time to warm. Like, nobody's warming up and getting used to it. But then you get out there and you want it to look good, right? And if you haven't warmed up and you haven't felt the throw, it takes. That's why. That's really why.
I don't know. I feel it
looks bad.
I feel it's just disappointing across the board.
Other quarterbacks, I see people asking about Lenora Sellers. His accuracy is a major concern. Honestly, Arch's accuracy, I think, is a bit of a concern as well. Different reasons. I think Sellers misses more throws. I think Arch's ball location is just poor overall. That needs to improve. Sellers just misses a ton of throws. It's closer to Anthony Richardson. I think Sellers, though, could be a special runner. I think his running ability is up there in I hate saying Lamar, but he's in that like Cam, Lamar, Jaden Daniels type of tier, Josh Allen in the NFL, where I think his running ability could be absolutely special. He is big and powerful, very quick and fast. Like, he's got all of those tools as a runner. And that's the first skill that I mentioned with Sellers. He's got good arm, whatever. His timing and accuracy need work in the pass game. I don't know if you ever get there. The running ability, I think, is special. Like more special than Richardson, more special than maybe some of the other guys that have come out. So that's where Sellers is. Mestermaker is going to be interesting. And then we'll talk Sorsby. Brendan Sorsby at Texas Tech, if you haven't heard, is under investigation.
Yeah.
He's checked himself into a clinic or something.
Yeah, voluntary rehab, effectively, for gambling addiction.
And so, and it's not just the gambling piece. It's the fact that he did gamble on his own team when he was at Cincinnati.
Yeah,
and not playing, or Indiana.
Right, albeit at that point he wasn't playing, as you said, and they were all for his team to cover, and they didn't. Like, it's but
it's still an issue. I mean,
right, but it's not. But it is I think it is an important distinction.
Right,
I think it is an important distinction from a game he had control over and could have potentially been throwing. It's not that. That's not what he's done or been accused of. He was just betting on his own team, effectively when he wasn't playing, to at least to do the good thing, to cover.
Right. So that's under investigation. It's look. You could take anything to court these days, especially in college football. Like
yes.
they put a salary cap in place a couple of years ago, and everybody ignored it. And now they're like, I think it's dead. We're all going to pay double if we want. So who knows? Anything can happen. So they're going to try to challenge and maybe get that last year of eligibility. He's got one of the biggest boosters, Calais Campbell, over at Texas Tech, perhaps backing him. So we'll see what happens there. But if there is a very realistic chance that we're going to dust off the supplemental draft for a guy like Brendan Sorsby, and you will see. So again, the way the supplemental draft works, we haven't seen one since 2019. This used to be a pretty common thing in the NFL. Players would come out, they'd lose eligibility, whatever it was. You have the supplemental draft. NFL teams is it a blind bid?
Yeah.
It's basically, so blind bid, you put in the round or the pick. If you have multiple picks in a round, you put in the pick that you want to use.
You basically put in what round you are willing to spend on this player, and then if you win, if that's the highest bid, and it's done, I forget how they do the draft. It must be last year's draft order. If two teams put in the same round, the team that had the higher pick last year gets that pick spent next year, and they win.
The answers on Sorsby are all over the place, right? Where he's a mid-round, he's a late rounder, but he's one of those guys on the list where if you put him at Texas Tech, they're the favorites to win the Big 12, and if he went through and had a really good season, he's in this first-round discussion. A lot of ifs here, but he's got tools, man. He's fast, he can run, he's got a good arm, he's coming off his best season at Cincinnati, and we're at the point where if Texas Tech and Indiana are recruiting you, just like they did with Mendoza, you're in the mix. Like, you're one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and that's what's happened. Like, that's why I'm saying Josh Hoover at Indiana.
Right.
Keep an eye on him. He's a good quarterback at TCU, and he's got the Mark Cuban money being thrown at him.
College football is funny because every quarterback prospect that comes up, there's a bunch of people who are like, that guy's garbage. And the thing is, they're always right. But it doesn't mean he's also not a first-round prospect. Like, that's just the nature of college football. You watch college football, and all the quarterbacks suck compared to the NFL. But half of them are going to be top prospects because that's just the way the nature of the beast. And some of those guys end up becoming good NFL quarterbacks. But like you see, Sorsby, Tom Palazzolo said he could end up being the highest drafted supplemental player in decades. Right? Like, this could be a genuinely sort of transformational thing for the supplemental draft, or a new thing, a throwback, and then you get this ton of people like, Sorsby's not even good, he's terrible. And you're like, well, these two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. You know what I mean?
We got to talk about the Cowboys of 1989, though, when it comes to that. So, anyway, what's crazy what they did. And we'll talk about that in a second. So, yeah, Sorsby's – I've done a shallow dive on Sorsby, not the deep dive.
Shallow.
Once we know he's in the supplemental draft, we'll do a deep dive. We'll do a supplemental mock draft for Brendan Sorsby. Can we lock that in?
Okay.
We'll do a supplemental mock draft. You predict the round. I'll predict the round. That's what we'll do. See if anyone else joins. But, yeah, I think the evaluations are all over the place. And because theoretically, if he hasn't had that final season at Texas Tech, I think he's probably a mid-rounder in this class. But we'll see. Teams like the Jets or the Browns or the Cardinals, if they want to go back to that might use a pick on a guy like Sorsby. But he's got some tools. I think he was a little up and down last year, game to game. There's some games he looked really good. I think he could zip it over the middle. He shows the touch. He shows some things. He's another guy that's a really good runner. But the Cowboys in 1989 drafted Troy Aikman number 1 overall, and then drafted Steve Walsh in the supplemental draft that summer. That's crazy. Could you imagine that happening today?
Right.
Could you imagine if that's like the Raiders go in, they have the supplemental draft, and they use their 1 right now on Brendan Sorsby. Mm-hmm. Right now on Sorsby. Like, oh, yeah, we got Mendoza, we got LinkedIn, but we want Sorsby too. We want both guys.
What a combination. LinkedIn and gambling addict.
Yeah, we want both guys. That's what the Cowboys did back in 89. And they went with Aikman long term instead of Steve Walsh. But, man, could you imagine? I love that. The quarterbacks, it's another big what if. We'll talk about them this summer. We'll get Renner's take at some point. But there's a lot of potential names. And, Mateer from Oklahoma, before he hurt his thumb last year, missed a couple games and then came back and wasn't as good.
Renner was talking him up as the top quarterback that period through the season.
Mateer was in the mix. C.J. Bailey, 6'6", with some tools. Rocco Becht is going to be a 4-year starter, now finishing his career at Penn State after 3 years at Iowa State. I mean, I'm not saying he's going in the first round or anything like that, but there are some names and some potential development at the quarterback position this season.
But the most exciting thing is all the other positions.
Let's go to receiver. So Renner had, next year's quarterback. So Renner has Arch as his top prospect and said, he'd be better than Mendoza, I believe, is what he says. Looking at last year versus this year. He said too close to call. Yeah, which is fair. Like, we don't know yet, but there's a chance that next year's QB1 looks better than Mendoza this year.
Yep.
Let's go. So running, really quick, I'll just go through the positions. Running back, I think it'll be deeper. I don't think you'll find a better prospect than Jeremiah Love. Ahmad Hardy right now from Missouri. Looks like the top running back prospect. There's a few others in the mix, though. Let's go to receiver, though.
Yes.
And what we're going to be seeing. So a couple of years ago as freshmen, you had Jeremiah Smith. You had Ryan Williams from Alabama.
Now Ryan something Williams.
Coleman Williams.
There you go.
Yeah, Ryan Coleman Williams. And then you had Cam Coleman, who was at Auburn for 2 years and has now transferred to Texas to play with Arch Manning. Those guys hit the ground running. Ryan Coleman Williams had an awful sophomore year. Jeremiah Smith, though, continued to ascend.
Yeah. Ryan, was he Williams this year or Coleman Williams this year already?
He was Ryan. I just found out last night that he was Coleman.
I think he was still Williams this year. So Ryan Williams forgot how to play football this year. And then Ryan Coleman Williams will hope to resuscitate his career and draft prospects. Very different types of receivers. Like, the thing about Jeremiah Smith, I mean, he's very good across the board as well, but he's one of those guys, the throwback to the time of Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, like these physical monsters, right? In addition to being amazing receivers, they were also physical freaks and just incredible specimens. That's what you're talking about with Jeremiah Smith. The second you see this guy, he looks like prime Julio Jones. And that, if you're also a very good player, it's a differentiator with other guys that are not built like that, right? And Ryan Williams, Coleman Williams now, is not that. He was just a very good receiver, but he didn't have that insane physical specimen thing bringing to the table as well. But again, people have been talking about Jeremiah Smith basically from the second they see him. It's like immediately just clocking eyes on the guy, like, wow, have you seen the state of that wide receiver over there? And then you see him actually run routes, and even, again, compared with first-round receivers like Emeka Egbuka, you're like, this guy's so much better than any of those guys. Like, he is this absolute monster. He looks like one of those guys that there are very few that come along in college football where you think genuinely he could have made the jump from high school to the NFL without bothering with the college football thing. Adrian Peterson is the most obvious example of those guys that, like, he could have skipped college, could have skipped Oklahoma, just gone straight from high school to the NFL and wouldn't have missed a beat. Jeremiah Smith looks like that as well. He looks like prime Julio Jones in the Big Ten, and I don't think that's hyperbole. Like, people are out here posting Julio Jones highlight reel clips and being like, think for a second before you start, using this man as a comp and using his name in vain. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it looks like Jeremiah Smith. Like, it's not inaccurate. That's why we're saying that.
This draft class, early on, it's very early.
Yeah.
Eerily similar to the 2011 draft class, which we did a watch along a couple years ago on that. We do another one. The 2011 draft class featured Cam Newton, who came out of nowhere. It's
like one of the greatest draft classes of all time.
But the non-quarterbacks in this class were out of this world. You have Von Miller, future Hall of Famer at 2. Marcel Darius, who at one point was, a Dexter Lawrence-esque nose tackle, maybe not as good, but one of the best in the league. A.J. Green at 4 to the Bengals. He comes off the board first. Look what the SEC had. A.J. Green, Patrick Peterson at 5 at corner, and then Julio Jones at receiver for Bama. They had A.J. Green, Julio Jones, and Patrick Peterson all in the SEC. I think this year's draft class between Jeremiah Smith, Leonard Moore, you've got some parallels there. Dylan Stewart could be the Von Miller as far as the movement skills and everything. But beyond that, they had Aldon Smith at 7, Jake Locker at 8, Tyron Smith, future Hall of Famer at 9, Blaine Gabbert, J.J. Watt, future Hall of Famer at 11. And then even beyond that, you saw like Nick Fairley at 13. I still thought underachieved a little bit, but was unreal in college. Robert Quinn, Ryan Kerrigan went at 16, Mike Pouncey at 15. I mean, so there was some.
I mean, Cameron Hayward is bottom of the first round. The dude's still going, still playing like an absolute monster. I mean, that draft class was nuts.
Muhammad Wilkerson had a really nice career. Not every pick was great. I'm just saying, like the top 10 to 15, Prince Amukamara, who is now a cartoon rabbit on YouTube. Learned that at the Super Bowl. Ran into Prince.
That's got to be one of the more rare.
I think that's what he is.
Career pivots.
He is the voice of I believe it's a cartoon rabbit.
Okay.
He was telling Mina and I at one point.
Richard Sherman as a fifth rounder that year.
Yeah, I mean the 11 club. It's just like prospect wise though.
Yeah.
It looks similar.
But anyway,
so you're all in on Jeremiah Smith.
Yes.
If and when the people dive into the film and try to pick him apart, what are they going to pick apart here? He dropped his first pass last year. I was like, well, this guy's the best player in college football.
I'm going to be frustrated when we get to the draft period and we get the draft hipsters start to try and tell me that somebody other than Jeremiah Smith is wide receiver 1 next year. Because, again, it's like start to finish. It's the Caleb Downs thing if Caleb Downs was built in a lab and looked like Nick Emanwari, right? It's like, for the guy that's been the best safety in college football for his entire career and is a physical freak, but a month into the pre-draft process when nobody's been playing football, you're trying to tell me that Dylan Thieneman or whatever is a better prospect? No. I'm sorry, no. We can say we've really warmed to Dylan Thieneman's game. I like him. I think he'd be a good pro. He's not a better prospect than Caleb Downs, right? That's what we're going to be doing with Jeremiah Smith, assuming everything goes the same way and nobody has.
He might not work out, and
right. It's like we're going to start to finish, day 1 to day end of their entire college career. We're going to be Jeremiah Smith is a generational Julio Jones clone prospect, but all of a sudden it's going to be, hey, Cam Coleman's better. I mean, okay, but he probably isn't. There's no reason. Again, assuming the next year looks similar for both these guys, there will be no reason to say that Jeremiah Smith is not the best wide receiver in that draft.
Cam Coleman's very good in his own right. And
sure. And
he's coming off 2 years of poor quarterback play at Auburn, and you're going to get some hype with him and Arch in Texas.
And again, these are not mutually exclusive things, right? We can talk up another prospect without saying he's better as a prospect than Jeremiah Smith. Unless Jeremiah Smith does the Ryan Williams thing and just forgets how to play football this year and has an absolute catastrophe of a year, in which case I would imagine he ends up going back to college and isn't in the draft at all. But unless something like that happens, he will be the best wide receiver prospect in this draft. And basically nothing that can happen this year from anybody else, in my opinion, will change that.
So Jeremiah Smith, we will be having the conversations, best wide receiver prospect since.
Yes.
And then it'll be, okay, how did you feel? But we were high on Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, just because you're a prospect doesn't mean it's panned out exactly how you want.
The list of names will be Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamar Chase.
Malik Neighbors, honestly, in that same Harrison draft.
Julio Jones / A.J. Green. You have to throw Green in there in the same year. And then Calvin Johnson, right?
Yep, 2007, Calvin Johnson. I think
that's the list, over the last 10 years plus.
Not to jump ahead here, but I think at corner, I think we've mentioned a little bit on the show here, with Leonard Moore at Notre Dame, we might have similar discussions. Best cornerback prospect since. And I think Derek Stingley at number 3 overall a couple years ago, then Sauce Gardner at 4 are both in the mix. And then you might be going back to Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
And I think Leonard Moore has a case for best cornerback prospect since insert your favorite cornerback prospect of the last 15 years. Legitimately.
Yeah.
They played one-on-one when they were true freshmen a couple of years ago. I hope they play in the college football playoff this year. Again, Moore and Jeremiah Smith. But then you'd get that Julio Jones, Patrick Peterson matchup that you had in college and the whole deal. But, man, Moore's size, length, movement skills just look unreal.
Yes, and crazy coverage production. Like, he just looks phenomenal. He looks right now like the perfect quarterback prospect. He's got everything you want. Again, there's that play against KC Concepcion down in the red zone where Concepcion runs this kind of like corner route, essentially. Not quite, but a sort of arcing corner route into the pylon. And it looks like he's open. And then Leonard Moore's wingspan length just sort of drops under the ball, elevates, swats it out of the air, and bats it down. He looks absolutely incredible, which isn't to say, like every cornerback gets beat sometimes. It's not to say there are no losses on his tape. You can find losses for literally every cornerback that's ever played the game. But he has fewer of them than basically anybody and looks phenomenal.
That's what I think what's most impressive about him is even if he's beaten, I've seen his recovery ability is unreal. And, Stingley I thought was an awesome prospect. He got beaten a lot. But you just looked at Stingley and his size and movement skills and ball skills, and you're like, okay, he's got all the tools you're looking for.
And he had that incredible freshman season, and the rest of his career hadn't been as good. And the talk was, well, he's got the athleticism and the physical makeup, and we've seen it as a freshman. Therefore, we can excuse away the rest. Cornerback's volatile, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like he had a perfect college career. Like we weren't, there were questions for him heading into the draft. It was like, well, why hasn't he been as good for the last couple of years, right? Why are we going back to the freshman tape to be like, this is the real Derek Stingley? So, yeah, like if Leonard Moore has a season this upcoming year, like he did last year, his prospect profile, his resume will be cleaner than Stingley's.
The other thing about Notre Dame, and I was our old friend Anthony Tresh saw him the other night as well, who's at Notre Dame. Notre Dame plays man coverage, Sam.
Yes.
In college football.
Yes.
That does not happen
No.
very often. Most teams, they're like, oh, we're going to play cover 4, cover 6, and you're going to play off coverage. Notre Dame is one of the very, very few teams in college that will play press man coverage and just say, all right, we're better than you. Let's go. So you've got a ton of reps of Leonard Moore playing press man. So it's not like a projection like, oh, this guy's like Sauce in college was off coverage all day. Very rarely actually got to use his press coverage skills, and it was kind of a projection. He's got the length and the tools and movement, and he could do it. Leonard Moore is erasing people in college. As you said, yes, there are times. Yeah, Casey Concepcion got him a couple times, and Mekhi Lemon got him a couple times in the slot before he started to shut him down. Of course that's true. But, yeah, Moore looks unbelievable. So that's another position where the top corner next year will absolutely be a better prospect. As much as we love Mansour Delane, who went at 6, I think Moore is a potential top 5 pick and best CB prospect since. Insert your favorite.
Yeah.
Receiver-wise, I'm interested to see, going back to that really quick, if Ryan Coleman-Williams can actually bounce back.
Yeah.
I don't think he was as all-arounder polished, but very good player with some explosiveness. The two Indiana, Nick Marsh at Michigan State transfer, going to Indiana now. Charlie Becker, who was, I don't want to say Mendoza's go-to guy, but he had a lot of huge catches down the stretch. And so the two Indiana receivers are in the mix. I mean, there's a chance that this is a very good receiver class as well. And then we'll have some Nick Harbor debates because he's like 230 pounds with track speed and just still young at the position. But, another year of development, that dude, nobody with that kind of size and speed combination.
The chat has called out Malachi Toney, who may be one of the better college receivers to come along in a while, but he won't be eligible for next year because he's a true sophomore. So he's got at least one more year in college before he can come out.
Let's just go to tackle. I'm not going to go every single position, but tackle. The two top guys, Trevor Gooseby from Texas, and then Jordan Seaton, who's at LSU via Colorado. I'll let you talk about Gooseby and I'll talk about Seaton. But both of these guys, I think, have a chance to be better than this year's tackle class, which, Spencer Fano is probably better, more technically sound, but you say, yeah, but arm length and this and that. Gooseby or Seaton have the tools to maybe be better prospects than this year's tackles.
Yeah, Gooseby was the guy who kept showing up again on everybody's tape this year. But unlike Will Campbell kept showing up on every edge rusher's tape because everybody got him at least once, right? It's like somewhere along the line, every one of those top edge rusher prospects that year had a rep where he's whooping Will Campbell. Gooseby kept showing up as dominating people. Like every edge rusher that you watched this year who played Texas was at some point getting wrecked by Gooseby or just being stonewalled, like running, hitting them with his moves and Gooseby not having any problems with it whatsoever. And you're like, why is this guy not in this draft? He looks amazing.
Renner already stated he would be tackle 1 for him in this year's class.
He was eligible, right?
He was eligible.
Could have come out.
He went back to school.
Yeah.
So another year.
So he could have already been a top 10 draft pick this year.
Yes, he probably would have been in that discussion for sure.
Yeah.
So Gooseby next year. The other one's Seaton, who is a fascinating prospect. He was one of the top freshmen a couple of years ago. Immediate starter on Colorado's offensive line, the final year of Shedeur Sanders. Very good, and he's very good in pass protection already. Size, movement skills, length, and everything. Just doesn't know how to run block yet. And we've seen a couple of these prospects with those types of profiles over the last couple of years. Olu Fashanu had that type of profile where it was like elite pass protector, but he's just not there in the run game yet. Laramie Tunsil, to a lesser extent. I think Seaton is there, but maybe even more extreme. Everything about pad level and the whole thing is going to be a question. The other thing that stood out, though,
movement skills are sick, though.
Yeah. So our friend Cole Kubelik posted a video the other day. He's like, "Look, he doesn't block anybody on this play, but watch him pull."
Right.
So and then it's like
that's where
unreal.
The guys at the combine, right? Where it's like there's no actual football taking place here, and they're not even in pads. But just watch this guy move around. Spencer Fano was that. It's like they were moving him. I mean, they had him running every position effectively, but he just moved different to everybody else in that class. And there's something to that, right? When you have a guy that is well north of 300 pounds and they look athletic, just moving around. That's a skill. It's a trait.
And he's not a total Seaton. He's not a complete ball of clay here. He's already pretty decent in pass protection, right? He already, the movement skills show up in pass pro. Now, his weight was reported all over the place, anywhere from 300 to 330 last year, whatever.
Right.
But when I looked into it further and I saw other plays with him pulling, I'm like, I don't know that I've seen too many tackles move this quickly. He looks like he can run a 4.7 at 300-plus pounds, whatever that is. And then in his recruiting profile, it said he hit 17.7 on the GPS, which would have been a top 3 to 5 mark in the NFL for tackles. Again, not that they run in a straight line. I'm just trying to describe the type of athlete that we have.
But again,
a true junior who's already good in pass protection and has to learn the run game and pad level and finish and assignments and the whole thing. But there's something to work with.
Right, and the speed thing is important for offensive linemen, not because you ever want them running 40 yards in a straight line, but because a guy who weighs 315, 320 pounds, who can run 40 yards in a straight line fast, it's a proxy for overall athleticism, which is a good thing. And it does have a lot of correlation to being a good player at the NFL level. That's the reason that we care about offensive line 40 times, not because you ever need them doing that, but because if you can shift 320 pounds down a straight line for 40 yards in under 5 seconds, you're probably a pretty good athlete, and that is the thing that's connected to being a good football player.
I just hope he runs the 40 next year because he
not a 10, we can't have a 10, 10 and bailing. Don't.
He looks like he could run 4.8 or something at 330. I mean, it looks wild. So tackle prospects could be better than this year's tackle prospects. Then you get to edge rushers. And you've got the alien that is Dylan Stewart from South Carolina.
Another guy.
And Colin Simmons from Texas. Really quick. Renner has Simmons as his top edge prospect next year. Mm-hmm. And Stewart, those are both top 10 potential players compared to, say, Reuben Bain and David Bailey this year. It looks like edge is going to be even better as well.
Yeah, and Stewart is another guy who, again, from basically day one, the second he started as a freshman, you're like, oh. He's different. He moves different. And again, there's a bunch of highlight reels on Twitter that you'll see right now of Dylan Stewart, just the movement that he has. He is freaky movement skills. And at size. He's 6'5", he's long, he's not sometimes you see these guys with crazy movement skills and they're like, 6'1", 6'2", short, small, put more compact and put together, which is easier to move like that. He's 6'5" and long with those movement skills. That's going to be a problem.
And the question for Stewart's going to be, does he play with enough power? Is he good enough in the run game? Well, we've got another year of development here as a true junior. There's definitely times where he'll get overpowered at the point of attack, but I would say movement bend wise, he might be I hate doing this.
The best since
Vaughn, right? Now Vaughn was. And look, I think Stewart in sack totals. He had like 4 sacks or something last year, 5 sacks, whatever it was. I mean, Vaughn was like a 15 sack guy at A&M. He was really productive. I'm just saying, watch out for Stewart. And South Carolina as a whole, I cannot believe what they have on their roster between Lenora Sellers with his size and movement,
athlete-wise,
Nick Harbor, just athlete-wise, Nick Harbor with his size and speed, Dylan Stewart, and then the Irish kid, that they're bringing in,
who never played anything, but was such a physical monster that gave him a scholarship right away.
Bruce Feldman's Freaks list usually uses some workout numbers and what have you, so I don't know where these guys land. But that might be 4 of the top 5 freakiest athletes in college football.
All on one
they
roster.
Might not land on Feldman's top 5, but I think they'll all be in like the top 15 or 20, all at South Carolina. And only Stewart's actually a good football player yet. Sellers has some developing to do. Harbor's got some developing to do, and the Irish kids never played, or at least here. So, it's just a fascinating roster right now. But, Dylan Stewart's movement. Colin Simmons has over 100 pressures across 2 years as a pass rusher at Texas, and he looks like he could be better than – I'm a David Bailey fan, but it does look like these guys could be better all-around prospects, maybe without the arm-length questions that Ruben Bain had.
Yeah.
Until they do. We'll see what happens.
I mean, those are all names that could be legitimate blue-chip prospects in next year's draft, and any of them could have been like the number 2 overall player in this draft because of the absence of blue-chip prospects this year.
So the point is, next year, if all these guys come out and don't regress, looks loaded. Next
year, So again, in this context of everybody is always talking up next year's draft in a the grass is always greener type of way, next year does look insane, right?
Yes.
In a even adjusting for that context of we always talk up next year's draft as the draft, next year's draft, 2027 specifically, does look nuts because we're talking about a bunch of players that would be the number 1 overall prospect on a big board in a lot of years. And they're all coming along theoretically at the same time. This was the reason that nobody was trading 2027 draft picks this year. 3 of them changed hands in the draft this year. There's usually way more than that. People did not want to give up 27 draft picks because the class looks pretty crazy.
And just to put a bow on that and go back to Renner's article, the few places where he said that the 2026 prospect, our current prospects, were better were all of the lower value positions, which is what we said throughout this entire process was going to be, some of the curveballs in the draft. Running back, Jeremiah Love, better prospect than probably next year's group. Guard, Venga Ioane, probably better than next year's prospects. Linebacker, Sonny Styles, better than next year's linebackers. Safety, Caleb Downs, better than next year's safety prospects. So this year had, say, blue chip type prospects at the lower value positions, whereas next year's loaded with blue chip prospects at the positions that you want to draft in the first round. So we might spend more time on the 27 draft even than we did last year. Anything else on the class before we take a look at who could go number 1? Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets. If your first bet wins, that's right, turn $5 into $250 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props on your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/33rd to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Ignore that train over there. 21 plus in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER 100-MY reset 1-888-789-7777. Visit ccpd.org/Chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 1-877-770-7867 in Louisiana. And today we're looking ahead to the 2027 NFL Draft. There are odds over at FanDuel. The odds of being the number one overall pick, we have Arch Manning at plus 165. He's the favorite. Dante Moore at plus 500. Jeremiah Smith at plus 600. There's C.J. Carr at plus 600. Julian Sayin at plus 1,200. And Lenore Sellers at plus 1,200. I'm looking at C.J. Carr as the guy with the tools and development path maybe to overtake some of those other guys, especially to your point, Arch could be coming back next year.
Yeah, well, for two reasons. For the fact that A, he's yet to play, I think, very good football, and B, there's a better than no chance that Arch Manning goes back and plays another year of college football. I wouldn't be taking Arch Manning given those odds. Dante Moore is the guy
I like that how he started.
Dante Moore is the guy I would be looking at because, number one, he may be a better football player right now anyway, and number two, he will be coming out next year. So you don't have to worry about that aspect of it.
So go check it out right now, FanDuel.com/33rd. I'm looking at C.J. Carr plus 600. You're looking at Dante Moore plus 500 to be the number one overall pick next year. We have a very special draft-related Shouty Shows. Let's get to it.
I've thought about it very deeply.
I like how he started it with, I've thought about this long and hard.
I trust the backup quarterback more than I do Dak.
This is why Skip Bayless is the master of the Shouty Show segment.
I can't do it anymore. It is year 6.
It's just a never-ending arms race of idiocy between loud, obnoxious people. We are the antidote to that.
All right. I see the titles. This is going to be fun. We're starting with Cam Newton on Arch Manning.
Oh, God.
This is the absolute worst quarterback draft class in the last 2 decades. And you want to know who's to blame?
Who is it?
Arch Manning.
He ain't even in this draft class.
Exactly. He was supposed to be. What Arch Manning was supposed to be was everything that Fernando Mendoza was.
National championship.
All-American, Heisman,
Face of college football.
all the above. Generational talent, the athleticism, and the running ability of his grandfather, Arch.
So you know what's would be a funny thing to go back and think about? Andrew Luck was supposed to come out in 2011 and then went back for his senior year, which was a thing back then. Well, it started to become everybody was coming out as juniors, and it became like a story when you went back for senior year, which Eli did, almost a decade earlier. And so what would have happened? Cam Newton's coming off of maybe the greatest quarterback season of all time
that year
at Auburn. Andrew Luck was destined to be the guy from his redshirt freshman year. And it wasn't, he was a redshirt junior in 2010. So 2011, he would have been coming out as a redshirt junior. And you would have had Cam Newton or Andrew Luck at the top. Who would the Panthers have taken? I think it would have been Luck still.
Probably, yeah.
Because of what do you think Cam would say?
He would say him. Cam Newton strikes me as, there are bands that get criticized for basically being a tribute act of another band. Cam Newton feels like somebody that has studied Stephen A. Smith in an attempt to be Stephen A. Smith, and is just everything he does is trying to copy that with the addition of being dressed like Top Cat.
Well, dressed like a cartoon cat.
Yeah, and it's like the whole thing rings hollow and fake. It's like it's all performative, all of it.
With the music and the drama and the whole thing.
Yeah, and the voice that goes up and down and pauses and it's all just designed to be. I've seen Stephen A. Smith do this. I could do that.
I think when you're on air like we are, you do end up stealing some of the cadences of the people. There was definitely a point where I recognized myself adding some Kuiper, Berman-esque cadences to my analysis. There's a way that I say some things that I stole from a guy in Boston radio, but not on purpose.
Okay.
And so I'll give some grace there, that it's not necessarily intentional. I'm not doing this intentionally. Like I almost in hindsight looked back and like, oh, I sound. Again, I'm not saying I'm as good as or trying to like I've stolen some of the way that they deliver, almost subconsciously. So maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But needless to say,
I feel like it's intentional.
We remain over, I think, in agreeing with anything Cam Newton has said.
Yes,
that has made its way to this show.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth. All right, let's go to Skip Bayless on Carnell Tate.
The worst draft for me was Tennessee's draft because I'm on record. I just don't like Carnell Tate that high. Way too high.
You know.
The worst draft for me was Tennessee's draft because I'm on record. I just don't like Carnell Tate that high. Way too high.
You know.
It's like it's absurdly high. It's what are you thinking high?
Damn.
He's not special. Give me Jordan Tyson there. Give me
Lemon.
Give me Mekhi Lemon. Give me somebody. I'll take Concepcion. I will. I want electricity, and I just don't see enough from him. And I actually feel for him because he's going to get thrust into a situation where the world is going to say, okay, show us number one, like be the guy. And I just don't think he's that guy. I don't think he has that mentality. I don't think he has that dog in him. Maybe I'll be wrong, but
how much film do you think Skip was grinding on Carnell Tate and the rest of the receiver class?
Very little. I mean, the idea that like the lack of explosiveness is the problem here. Like Carnell Tate was averaging over 17 yards a catch, 3 yards per route run. Like and if anything, too much of his route tree was the explosive part and not enough, underneath and the sort of full breadth of the route. Like for that to be a criticism, particularly when you're like, give me Mekhi Lemon at 4 overall. I mean, if they had drafted Mekhi Lemon or KC Concepcion at 4 overall, you're telling me he wouldn't have also had an aneurysm? I mean, this is just the criticism is it's not logically sound. Like
I will say.
It's all based off, I just don't like Carnell Tate based off the 3 minutes of highlight reel I watched.
I will say, I mean, Tate going at 4, we've said this the entire time. We both liked him as the top receiver prospect, cleanest and everything. It will be funny looking back when, if Jeremiah Smith goes at 4 and Marvin Harrison's gone at 4,
right.
And Jamar Chase goes at 5, and you look back historically and it's like, well, Tate's not really in that mix.
Yeah, I mean, that is
a prospect.
That's the like.
But the other guys aren't either.
Exactly. But just put up against that, right? Jamar Chase at 5 versus Carnell Tate at 4. Yes, but if that's the only information you have, he's wildly overdrafted. But it isn't the only information you have. There are other things that factor into where a guy is drafted, and that's what makes it a pick that's perfectly defensible. And I think, in my opinion, the right pick, at a bare minimum, a pick that you shouldn't dump all over as, well, it's crazy. What are they even doing? Like only if that's the only info you have, can you make that kind of rational argument. Plus, it's also, and this is what I don't like about Mel Kiper's shtick, is that it's all based off just what I think, right? And that's just a stupid way of doing this, right? Because you're not in control over these teams. You don't get to make the decision. The analysis should be, is what I think a fair criticism? Is them not doing what I think a fair criticism, or is it just me deciding that I know better than everybody in the room for all 32 NFL teams, right?
Right.
When Kiper spent 3 days bitching at everybody that they're not drafting Shedeur Sanders, and not once did it occur to him that like maybe the league is thinking differently about this than me, and maybe that's a valid thought process, it ruined 3 days worth of broadcast for everybody that was watching it. For Skip Bayless to just be like, I don't like Carnell Tate, therefore this is a dumb pick, is, in my opinion, stupid analysis. Even when we do the draft and there are picks or things happening that we don't like or wouldn't do, we're at least trying to give the other side of the argument. Like here's like when my criticism of the Chargers not drafting Emmanuel Pregnon when he's sitting there and they have a guard need, I did at least at some point be like, maybe they just don't like Pregnon. He's not necessarily a fit for that Mike McDaniel offense, and they're looking at a different direction. Then they draft Jake Slaughter. It's like maybe they're going to play him at guard. Okay, you can sort of see a logic there. It's not what I would have done. I still don't really like it, but that's the case, right? They're not even doing that. It's just like, I don't like it, therefore it's bad. End of discussion.
Skip apparently was just a huge Mekhi Lemon fan. He's got
of course.
We got a tweet here from Skip on Mekhi Lemon. I think Mekhi Lemon is the steal of the draft at 20. He will haunt the Cowboys for years to come.
Uh-huh. I mean, you may do, but,
I don't necessarily disagree. I love Mekhi Lemon. And I said that is a fun storyline. The Cowboys trading down, like the Devontae Smith deal, letting the Eagles get their guy. Mm-hmm. All right, I cannot wait to hear what Colin Cowherd has on Caden Proctor.
Okay, listen, I was so fired up for the Dolphins, and then they take the one tackle I didn't like. And I've said this before. When you find offensive linemen, if you find college players that are hurt a lot, well, they're gonna get hurt in the pros. If you find college linemen that struggle with weight, and now you're gonna make them rich, they're not gonna become, Jack LaLanne or bodybuilders. Like, they're Proctor. All you hear about him is, boy, he should dominate way more. That scares that pick to me. I don't mind the corner later because he's a versatile kid, and it's eye of the beholder a little bit. I didn't love the Proctor pick.
Doesn't like Proctor and the weight history. That's fair.
So, yeah, I think those are reasonable concerns. I would quibble a little bit with the idea that you take this guy and you're now making him rich because NIL, they're all rich already now. That's a little bit of a take from the 1990s. But
no, it's more just like it's going to be interesting for Dolphins fans looking back at they passed on Caleb Downs and Reuben Bain.
But you can't make the argument now that you're taking this kid who has nothing and you're making him rich with concerns that he's already, not giving it everything when he had nothing. Like, all these kids are rich now already.
They are.
Right? So you're not adding money to a process that didn't already have money to it. Maybe you're adding more money, but I don't think you're adding exponentially more to the point where it would change behavior the way that it maybe did in the past. Now you're just making a rich guy even richer. But I do think there's something to the idea that if he struggled with weight all the way through his college career, he's probably going to struggle with weight in the NFL. My thing would be more, you're sending him to South Beach more than you're giving him money. It's like that. Yeah. If you're trying to take a guy who's struggling with motivation or maybe distractions from football and where would you want to send him, right? You could pack him off to the middle of the country where there's nothing to do, or you could send him to South Beach. Yeah, that wouldn't be great. Again, though, it's a little bit of like, I don't like this, therefore it's bad. I understand people being concerned about the Proctor pick from Miami.
I do think it'll be an interesting dynamic looking at Miami, where neither of us loved Proctor overall. He will start at guard, which I know you liked that.
Which is also, an interesting element to this.
I understand why Proctor was a guy. I know he was. The Lions were supposedly all over him. A few picks later, there was reports that they were trying to potentially trade up with the Ravens. That might have been off the table now because that happened. I want to talk a little bit about what Eric DeCosta said on his pod too, because he was saying that they had a team 2 or 3 picks later that was trying to trade up, that fell apart, and now I'm putting the pieces together. I wonder if the Lions were trying to get up to 14 to maybe take Proctor, and then he comes off the board at 12. So it's not like the Dolphins were the only team that liked Proctor. I think the A/B analysis for that is going to be like, how did Caleb Downs turn out, and how does Reuben Bain turn out?
It's also, he's the type of prospect that gets, I don't want to say overdrafted, but the NFL becomes enamored with players like that, right? Athletic specimens that can do something special, and the ones that, have that a profile, but as Cowherd says, doesn't dominate as much as you would think, or does get beat more often. I mean, that's not an uncommon profile for a tackle drafted very high in the draft that everyone's like, ooh, don't know that I love that.
I also wonder how much Colin's opinions basically off of what Nick Saban was saying, like the motivation, like that report that came out, or what,
which is a huge red flag
within 2 weeks of the draft,
right?
Yeah, which is not the greatest thing in the world.
Your former college coach saying that about you, admittedly as like an 18-year-old as opposed to the current version of you. I mean, that should be a red flag to people. I would be scared about that. I mean, if I was Miami, right, for all the talk after the draft that they've been, putting out there publicly, we love this guy, he's phenomenal, I'll watch the tape with anybody, blah, blah, blah. I would be pretty scared of that. Like, if I was the first-time GM and this was my first big swing, I'd be pretty scared of that as a pick. I would have probably gone somewhere safer than that, but I get it. I appreciate the guts and the swing at it.
All right, let's go to TJ Hushmanzada on Ty Simpson, which apparently is not very shouty, but let's hear it out.
About a month and a half, 2 months ago, that I felt like I said I would take Ty Simpson over Mendoza.
Yep.
And because of Ty Simpson being drafted to the Rams, I'm now going to say this. Ty Simpson's going to have a better career than Mendoza. As long as McVay is his coach, he's going to have a better career.
What?
I'm telling you now.
Oh, you're saying as his coach.
As long as
That's
McVay,
actually not crazy to say.
long as McVay does not retire in the next 10 years, Ty Simpson is going to be a dog. You're getting with a great coach. People take for granted that your father was a coach or your dad was a coach. When you're around ball your whole life, you understand protections if you're a quarterback. You understand coverage. You understand what the defense is trying to do. If you get protected as a quarterback, you know where to go with the ball. You've been around this your entire life. And so for me, I've always thought Ty Simpson was a really good quarterback, and I said that on this show months ago. And now this really just confirmed, if you play for Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams and you play offense, you are going to be successful.
Yeah, I don't think it's I mean, just like when Dano said Simpson had better tape, I think you could argue with, well, did he? If you stopped after week 8, it's really tough to make that argument. Yeah. But have a better career? Like, yeah, I'm smart enough to know not to have strong takes on quarterbacks. Even though, I know there's people in the chat saying we don't, take strong enough takes. That's why you're no Stephen A. I got you, buddy. Just trying to have realistic football conversations here. The last number 1 overall quarterbacks that have been taken, they're not all the best quarterbacks in the draft.
I mean, that's the thing. Just by odds and the way these play out, if you took any second versus first quarterback in draft history and said there's a pretty good chance that number 2 ends up being the better player than number 1, like without knowing anything, you would be right reasonably often by just doing that, right? So you can't say it's crazy just plucking it out from those odds, but specifically the reason he's giving is solid as well. Like one of the reasons we were saying, look, this makes sense as a gamble, as the Jordan Love type of pick for the Rams, is the McVay factor, is that contrary to the images afterwards of McVay looking bummed out at the press conference, McVay almost certainly was at least a willing and happy part of this process, if not the guy driving the pick in the first place, right? McVay almost certainly very much likes Ty Simpson and what he's got in him, whether that's personality, traits, tools, the whole package put together. McVay almost certainly thinks there's something very much there in Ty Simpson. And if McVay is able to make that work, then you're going to be stepping into a well-run organization with a lot of talent around you at some point, and a coach who's able to get pretty special stuff out of players, even if every now and again he maybe burns that player out or whatever with the Jared Goff stuff. But, I mean, it makes sense, right? There's a lot of reasons to think that Ty Simpson could be a better quarterback than Mendoza.
And just looking at the last few draft classes, Cam Ward goes number 1 overall. We still don't know what it's going to look like, but in year 1, Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck probably both looked.
I mean, if you at least got 2 viable rivals going forward.
He's got 2 rivals.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, number 1 in 2024. Fair debates between Jaden Daniels,
2
Drake
viable
May,
rivals. Yeah.
Bo Nix. For Broncos fans. Like, there are debates.
Yep.
Bryce Young to C.J. Stroud. Stroud has been better overall. Trevor Lawrence, I think the clear number 1. There was a point where Mac Jones had a better first year and a half or so compared to Trevor Lawrence. Joe Burrow, number 1 overall. I think I think he's the best. Herbert at least has an MVP vote, can state a case against him. Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall in 2018. Of course, you have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold. Mitch Trubisky, number 2 overall, but you got Mahomes and Watson behind. Like, doesn't mean the number 1 quarterback is completely locked in as the top guy. So, yeah, it's not a wild take. I would still take Mendoza right now, but we'll see how it plays out.
Before we get to the next one, I have some great and terrible news for you.
Yes.
Would you like the great news or the terrible news first?
You start with the bad news, right? You start with terrible.
The terrible news is that the 2 deans of Embrace Debate are reuniting. Skip Bayless will join Stephen A. Smith on ESPN's First Take this Friday. Front Office Sports has learned. Would you like the good news?
Yes. Now we need it.
The reunion is now described as a one-time show.
Ah, good. Thank God.
So they will be appearing together for some hellish hour of bullshit, but thankfully it's a one-time thing, and they'll go back to being separate again.
I'm just happy for Skip to get Skip's going to make one more money in one-off show than we're going to make all year. happy for Skip.
Uh-huh.
Good for him.
Good things happen to good people.
I can't wait to see that. And the rating's going to be good. They're going to be good. Like, it's nostalgic for somebody.
Ugh.
It is.
Ugh.
There are people out there who were like, man, I was in college. I used to wake up, listen to those guys every day before class.
It's just depressing.
Hungover, you know. Here's Nick Wright on Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson.
If he hasn't,
I think he's
I'm just
terrible.
saying he's been terrible.
I don't.
But
listen,
has he staying
I'm
terrible?
talking about it purely as like I'm keeping this totally on the field. I think just as a quarterback, he's terrible.
Geno was terrible at one point. Sam Darnold was terrible at one point.
Not. Hold on. I think we are. If Shedeur Sanders cannot beat out Deshaun Watson, even in year 2, it is a stinging indictment on wherever Shedeur is going to be as a pro. I'm not as high on Shedeur as you are, Brew, but I did not expect him to lose a fair head-up competition to Deshaun Watson, who very simply has been well beneath backup level for years.
All true.
Yeah,
Nick.
It is missing the element of what he was before that, though. Like, yeah, so Austin Gale, the great Austin Gale, now with The Ringer, formerly of PFF, was posting all these, like, futility records that Deshaun Watson was setting for the Browns of, you know, the Browns, right? This team that's got this list of quarterbacks that have played for this team, all of whom have been awful for the last, 25 years or so. Deshaun Watson was the guy setting records for, like, this is the worst offense this team has ever put together, right? So that part is entirely fair. If you can't be better than that, how bad must you be? But it's missing 2 elements. Number one, before Deshaun Watson arrived in Cleveland, he was elite for the Houston Texans. Now he sat out a year and whatever, and he's been injured now and coming off 2 Achilles tears to the same Achilles, and there's a lot of reasons that he may never get back towards being elite. But we now know that the range of outcomes for Deshaun Watson is like one of the worst quarterbacks in league history and elite up here. And he can be anywhere in the middle, right? So just the fact that he's been here recently doesn't mean that the ceiling isn't still up here. And therefore, all of this is area that he could be theoretically going forward because he's still only, 30 years old or whatever. And then the other aspect is Kevin Stefanski is no longer there. And I think that the fit between Deshaun Watson and Stefanski's offense was bad to begin with, and then everybody got lost trying to make it work, right? Like you strayed from what you wanted to do to try and make it work for Deshaun Watson, and you made everything worse. And somewhere along the line, they lost their way back to the path, and it's like we are just lost in the tall grass here. Nobody has any idea what to do to make this work. So that's gone as well, right? You've got Todd Monken coming in with a fresh offense and no ties to anybody. And he's like, just give me the guy that looks like he's going to make my system operate the best, right? And from that standpoint, it's probably more likely that the 30-year-old NFL veteran who's been in multiple systems gets it quicker, looks better doing it, and, I mean, he has superior physical tools to Shedeur as well. So it would make sense that over like a week's period of snaps, that guy looks better immediately, wouldn't it? Like, isn't that the guy that you would expect to look better right off the bat?
In a week's worth of snaps, absolutely.
In a week's worth of snaps with a fresh offense.
Mini camp. Yeah.
Right. Like it makes sense that he looks immediately better right out of the gate. Now, over a full training camp or whatever, maybe Shedeur equalizes that and starts to look better. But it's entirely plausible that because of the ceiling we've seen from Deshaun Watson in the past, he is a better quarterback than Shedeur.
I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this a lot this offseason.
Really?
The Browns quarterback situation.
Yeah.
I mean, Watson, again, we always have to preface, like, just on the field, just the on-field regression of Watson.
It was crazy.
And look, maybe it paired with everything that happened off-field, right? He gets caught. These things, go down. Cleveland trades for him anyway. But the last time he was good was 2020, the COVID season.
Yep.
And
it's a long time ago now.
And when Watson, when he was a rookie in 2017, elevated the Texans pretty quickly. 18, 19, and 20 has very good seasons. He led the league with 8.9 yards per attempt in 2020. He sits out all of 21, most of 22, comes in. And so, like, his Browns versus Texans numbers are like night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could chalk that up to Stefanski and the offense or maybe the weather, I mean, just add up all these things that are going against Watson, the off-field, the injuries. Can Todd Monken get something, like you said, in between? Because in between is a wide range.
That's the point. I think there's almost zero chance that he ever gets back to being the elite, all-pro caliber player that he was the last time he played for Houston. But if he's 75% of that guy, he's a pretty good player, and that actually sets quite a high bar for somebody like Shedeur. Like, that's where I would disagree with Nick. It's not necessarily a stinging indictment of Shedeur Sanders as a player, as a potential quarterback, if Deshaun Watson is anywhere in the middle from the garbage he's been playing the last few years and where he started off playing. Like, if he splits the difference and ends up somewhere in the middle, that's a solid player.
And to be clear, like, I think if Stefanski was back and we were having this conversation, I would say there's like a lot of evidence that
then at that point,
good.
Nothing's changed. Why would he get any better?
There's this one variable change.
Yeah, and it's a big one.
That has me at least rethinking it a little bit.
Right.
The differences in everything. 68% completions to 61 from Houston to Cleveland. Touchdown percentage is 2.5% lower in Cleveland. 5.9 to 3.4. That is a massive number. Interceptions are about the same. He averaged 2.3 yards per attempt more in Houston than in Cleveland. 2.3, Sam. 8.3, which is historic and legendary,
right,
to 6, which is historically legendary on the other end. Almost 100 more yards per game, 90 more yards per game in Houston versus Cleveland. And then the other interesting stable numbers, sack numbers are pretty similar, 9% sack rate, but it's up to 11 in Cleveland. I mean, it's just wild, wild differences. So is there a world where Deshaun Watson is, let's just say, a league average
That's what I'm saying.
quarterback? Yeah. He's QB 18, 19, or 20. It's more, we both like Shedeur Sanders. Of course, there's a chance that he could get there too, but that's not out of the realm of possibility that Watson gets there.
Replace Shedeur Sanders with any year 2 quarterback that wasn't like the number 1 overall pick. Like, if Deshaun Watson is a league average quarterback and he could be better than that, I mean, that is not a low bar for a guy to beat out, right? Like, the idea that you immediately have to beat out that guy to show anything at the NFL level. Like, that's not an insignificant bar to set if you are an athletic, big-arm quarterback who's playing at a league average level, albeit in training camp or whatever. That's not a gimme that you should be better than that guy right out of the gate. Like, that's a pretty high bar to set, whereas Nick's like, if you don't show anything that you can beat this guy, you're nothing.
I feel like we're in a golden age of OTA analysis right now.
Well, the Browns
we're at the very beginning of OTAs.
This was the first time I have ever seen beat reporters charting rookie minicamp snaps, like the completion rate and stuff, right? Like,
they were putting
6 for 7 for 45 yards at a touchdown, like on rookie minicamp snaps. I've seen it. I mean, training camp, that was a thing. Like, oh, wow, these guys are putting out.
If I was running a team, I feel like I would ban that, not because I'm trying to hide anything.
Because it's meaningless.
Because it makes people dumber. It's just making people dumber.
Like, it's actively misleading sometimes. Like, if we're running red zone drills where we're working on a specific thing.
This guy had 4 touchdowns.
Right, and they're disadvantaged, and the other guy was doing something different. Like, it's literally misleading. It's not a fair representation of what happened.
Breaking down drills. What's this drill? How's this helping? What about this thing? What about, look at this shin angle? It's like, oh my gosh, it's just barely May. We got like a couple more months of OTAs before we even get to training camp.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even gotten to schedule release yet, Sam.
Oh God, that's coming soon, right?
They moved it back
to when?
Like the 18th of May or something. I think they're trying to, because like there was a report that Mahomes is going to participate in minicamp.
Might play.
Yeah, but that's like a loose participation thing. But it sounds like he's doing well in his recovery. I wonder if they're trying to figure that out and figure out how much they're going to backload Kansas City games versus front load them. Right? That's a thing. Like if Mahomes is going to be healthy, you could have more good games early. If he's not going to be healthy, it's like, all right, let's get the Raiders game out of the way week 1. Like, that's a legitimate thing that they'll probably do. Skip Bayless, of course, had an opinion on the Browns drafting a quarterback.
Oh God! On
the Twitter sphere.
Why?
In all caps. Can you emphasize the why a little bit more the way he did?
Why? Browns draft another quarterback, Taylon Green, top of round 6. Freakish big guy athlete who throws it pretty well and definitely can run, But the Browns don't need another quarterback. They have 3 with Shedeur the starter. Show some faith in him, says Skip Bayless.
Shedeur believer. Sticking with
Nobody has ever been justifiably angry about a 6th-round quarterback being drafted. It's almost an irrelevance.
Teams who draft 6th-round, 4th quarterbacks
right.
have had a pretty good history of winning Super Bowls. So you might want to go that route.
But a 6th-round quarterback is not even. It's never changed a team's plan immediately. You know what I mean? Nobody drafts a 6th-round quarterback with the intention of that changing the dynamic in the quarterback room, right?
Yeah.
You draft a 6th-round quarterback to roll the dice, and maybe eventually you'll wind up with a guy. You don't draft him being like, oh, look, we thought we were going to go with this guy as the starter, but actually we just drafted this other dude, so change that immediately. Taylon Green does not affect that. This is a bigger indictment. If Taylon Green in any way, shape, or form affects Shedeur Sanders' spot on this
then
team,
that's on you, Skip. That's your fault.
That's an indictment on Shedeur Sanders, right? If Shedeur can't beat out a Deshaun Watson, if Watson's actually playing well and looking solid, that's not necessarily an indictment on Shedeur Sanders. If Taylon Green's presence on the roster affects Shedeur Sanders in any way, that's an indictment on Shedeur Sanders.
You missed an opportunity to get Shedeur another weapon in round 6, though.
You did.
That's the real issue. All right, it's good to have Shouty Shows back. Have a little draft version of that. Quick break to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage. But when Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. Need a tow truck, jump start, or lock your keys in the car? The Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into Roadside Assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You get started today at Root.com. Today we're providing roadside assistance for the Jacksonville Jaguars because they had the consensus worst draft. So how do we encourage the Jags? I say just win, baby. Just go win.
Just win, baby.
Just hit on your picks and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I would also say, as much as it is the consensus worst draft, maybe they're right. There's a chance that they are smarter than everybody else and that they have cracked the draft and that this draft will end up being great.
I
wouldn't say it's a big one, but there's a chance.
I am interested in the full year of their process and James Gladstone. They still drafted in volume. They still drafted like 10 players,
good.
right?
Right.
So that part's good, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't hate the tight end that they got, Borkircher. I don't hate him as a prospect. It's more like you don't get the opportunity cost on the other side. You don't get could they still have had him? Could they still have had they could have maybe still had their top 2 picks later.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe you give up Pregnon, but maybe you could have had 2 other players that everyone seemed to like more, and the 2 players that you liked the most, and so you never get that other side of it.
It's also honestly, one is okay. It's like that guy that had the tweet. Everyone breaks the law every now and again, right? But if you're doing it all the time, it seems like a problem. Yeah, okay. You want to reach for the one tight end this one time. Maybe the league sees it differently. Maybe that's one of those ones where the NFL is collectively higher on the guy than the consensus, and the consensus is wrong. That's fine. But to be spending the entire draft basically overdrafting guys by 100 picks, right? We drafted the guy that was 685th on the consensus big board, and then we came back for the guy that was 686th. It's like that collectively is the problem, right? Drafting in volume is good. Okay, we're going to deviate from the consensus one time because we think we're right and the consensus is wrong. All right. To be doing that all the time feels like an issue. So my advice to them would be that should be part of the self-scouting process between now and next year, right? Let's go back. Let's find out why we were deviating from the consensus by 150 picks 5 times in this draft. And instead of celebrating that we got 10 of our 11 guys that we had penciled in for these spots, let's ask if that was because we had them ranked 100 spots higher than everybody, and that may be a problem. And if that's something we can improve on going forward. Because there's a degree of self-congrat. It's like when Dallas gives a guy a second contract because they drafted him, and it's like a sort of self-congratulatory circle, right? It's like, is that actually good process, or are you compounding one error with another error? is celebrating that you were able to draft everybody that you wanted actually good, or should you be thinking, was that too easy?
It's going to be fun to watch it play out. And so Jags, just go win is my advice. And they still have most of last year's foundation where they won a lot of games.
Yeah.
And I thought Liam Cohen did a really nice job, so they, could be perfectly
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, look, organizationally, things are looking up for Jacksonville, right?
Yeah.
That was the best season for Trevor Lawrence. It was the team obviously heading in the right direction, everything looking good. But, let's not use that as an excuse for why what looked like not a great draft was actually good. Like, just because the team is in a good shape right now does not mean that the draft was inherently automatically good.
Roadside assistance for the Jags. Go check it out, root.com. Are we thrown to the bugler here for the rest of our stuff here? We don't need to. A couple other news and notes, though, to touch on. And I want to piggyback on the consensus board. I'm going to call an audible really quick. Did you happen to catch any of the Eric DeCosta interview?
Yeah, I saw clips. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched some clips that were out there on Twitter.
I watched the whole hour. I thought it was really good. I thought Eric did he really dove deep into just a few nuggets that I got out of that. First off, they drafted Venga Ioane at 14. And not a lot of GMs do this. Like, he was very honest. He said we had 3 players that we were debating. Now, most GMs don't do anything to throw their draft.
Right, they got their one guy. They got the guy they wanted the whole way along. Nothing changed. Yeah,
and so he doesn't throw anybody under the bus other than saying, "Hey, we had three players we were happy to take: Venga Ioane, Kenyon Sadiq, and Ruben Bain at 14. And of course, Sadiq ends up going at 16, and Bain goes at 15. So the next 2 players off the board." He also said that they had a deal in place, like I was saying, from a team 2 or 3 picks later. Could have been the Jets at 16, could have been the Lions at 17. That they were willing to trade down, pick up an extra 4 or 5, whatever it was, and still get one of those 3 guys. They end up sticking the draft. The trade fell apart. They took Ioane. But I thought that was great honesty. He mentioned Zion Young, their second-round player. He mentioned the angst of being in the second round, where you're stacking this board and you're like, man, I like 15 guys here. And when you're the Ravens picking toward the back end or middle of the second round, they all come off the board. But he said Zion Young, they had a first-round grade on, and they still liked him where they got him. So they were thrilled to get him in the second. The more high-level strategic stuff that he talked about, the consensus board discussion was going around. And he was basically saying, multiple things that he said about the consensus board. Yes, we look at this thing. Second, he talked about how they can influence it. And he talked about how, players at the Senior Bowl, and they're third-round players, but they'll be first-rounders by the end. Maybe Zion Young's one of those examples. And he was like, watch this, I can influence it, which I think is interesting and true. But the other thing that he said was
how are they influencing it?
Like, you just put something out in the media and players move. Now, you can move 1/32nd of it, right? You don't have full control or influence over it, but you have some influence over the board, right? You have some influence over where people are ranking things in the media and mock drafts and everything. But the thing he said that I found most interesting was that they found in recent years people are drafting like the Ravens more often. In other words, I think he's saying because of the consensus board, because of the wisdom of the crowds. And he mentions analytics and data and everything. It's all our fault, Sam, because there's more data now than there was 5-10 years ago. Or at least it's more rich because there's over 10 years of really rich college football data. Teams are drafting more like the Ravens. And so what they used to see as an edge, because they were early with numbers and analytics and how they weighed the draft, because they were early, I think they had an advantage. 2018, 19, 20, right? They had an advantage. And I'm hearing him say, we're losing some of our advantages. Because other teams are catching up, and and he repeated what we've said on the show a lot, which is the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a lot more homogenized. It's been a lot closer to the consensus. And so I just think the consensus discussion is interesting, because the people who are against it, like, this discussion has gone from this doesn't exist to, okay, it might exist, but nobody uses it, to, oh, maybe people use it, but they still go off their own boards, to actually, no, teams have drafted like this a lot the last few years. Like, the arguments against the board have just, to me, gotten knocked down the more information you hear. Teams do use them. They do reference them. Now, DeCosta also went the other way and said, there are players that we thought say they were 30, use the example, we had it 35 and the
Right.
consensus had it 105, and they go closer to 35 than 105. In other words, there are players that the league's higher on that the consensus misses. We all agree. Like, that's absolutely part of it. The part that he didn't connect was the analysis that Arif has done. It was, okay, when the league grabs someone at 35 who should have gone at 100, does it work out? He never really connected that dot or mentioned names or anything.
I noticed that, that's an interesting element to it that I think that we haven't really talked about, which is if what he says and what we've been saying is true, that the league was kind of homogenizing, everything was coming together, everybody's doing the same thing and broadly speaking the same way, and everyone's like the edge is disappearing for these teams that were there first. Should your strategy as an NFL team be to just optimize everything and play the best percentage the whole way, right? Effectively, if you think about it like poker, right? Should you be doing it by the book every single hand because that's mathematically the smartest thing to do if everybody's doing that, right? Or is the real genius in trying to find the zig to everybody's zag and maintaining or generating an edge that has disappeared? And actually is the best way to win being the one guy that's doing something different when everybody else is sticking by the numbers, right? Because, you look at, again, poker, the best players in the world do not stick to the book every single time. They understand when to take the gamble, when to deviate from the book, and when to do something different, because it's the only way you're going to win if everybody's playing the book. If everybody's playing the mathematic numbers the entire time, everyone's doing the same thing.
And you're playing other people. You're not playing.
Right. So
it's not blackjack where you're playing the dealer.
Right.
You're playing other
everybody
humans.
else.
Right.
So is actually in the NFL, that's an argument I haven't seen anybody present yet, but is actually to me the best argument right now for deviating in some sort of serious way from the consensus, whether it's the consensus board or the consensus optimal strategy of team building, right? Is if everybody's doing the optimal way, we're all in the same boat and we're all just at the mercy of luck. The only way to maintain an edge is to find something different and push in that direction, even if right now it doesn't seem optimal by the data that we all have. That's what we're trying to do. I haven't seen anybody make that argument yet, but that actually might be the strongest argument to be doing what the Jags are doing or doing what the Rams did for years.
That's where I think I mentioned this on one of the shows recently. I'll get to the baseball thing, right? Baseball has had so much data over the last 2+ decades that like the average fan or the average person's like, well, where are the edges now if everybody's got the same information? Well, where baseball teams have differentiated is said, okay, well, we still value different things, right? We all have the same data and information, but we still value different player types. We still have our own system. We have different types of coaches. We have different strengths from a development standpoint. So we might be able to take players with certain weaknesses because we know that we can develop those. That's where I think football could be going. And it's not necessarily going to be, just draft off the consensus. It's going to be, okay, we still have a general idea of where people are expected to go, but there are certain players that will fit us better. And my theory to this point is that teams have overfit the fit. They have overthought the fit thing historically and passed up better players.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how they do that going forward. The other part that someone in the chat mentions that DeCosta said is that, so they're picking in the middle of the second round, and they wanted a center there. They thought that either so they liked two centers. He was very honest about this. Logan Jones from Iowa and Jake Slaughter.
Because obviously remember.
And so he didn't like them enough to take them ahead of Zion Young.
Yeah.
But he thought one of them would at least last till their next pick, to the point where he would potentially trade up. And so he's trying to work the draft saying, we get our guard in the first round, we get the edge rusher in the second round, who's a really good run defender and adds something that we don't have on the edge. And I think DeCosta and the Ravens would have said this is an absolute home run if we can get our starting center in round 3 and feel good about that. And it just didn't materialize. The two players that they felt could start at center just weren't there. They ended up going higher. And ironically, one of the teams that drafted him was the Chargers, former Ravens, Joe Ortiz. It was the Ravens front office that's moved to the Chargers. So I thought that was really interesting. And then that gets into the whole, I always talk about the draft in this idealistic world of don't draft for needs and everything, but they are trying to fit all of these pieces together. And the other piece that he mentioned was, remember a couple of years ago, they went into the draft with 3 starters needed on the offensive line, similar to this year. and they waited on Roger Rosengarten. And he was that was the year that they had Patrick Paul go in the second, and Kingsley went in the second. And Rosengarten, he mentioned, was the last guy that they had who could start. And they get him in the second round, and he ends up being maybe the best tackle of all the second rounders and better than some of the first rounders that year. So it feels like they have thread the needle a couple times going into the draft with these needs and hoping that the draft fell to get their starter. And a couple years ago with Rosengarten, it worked. With center, it didn't work. And so now they have a legitimate fallback plan question. What happens at center this year for the Ravens?
Because they lose Tyler Linderbaum, obviously, in free agency. They've got a pretty acute center need. The one thing about that struck me as kind of strange is that he said something along the lines of, it never really occurred to them that both of those guys might be gone by the time their pick came around. It's like they were, I mean, again, if you focus on the consensus board, they were, I think, 93 and 95 on the consensus board. So it wouldn't seem crazy that both of them could be gone at that point to me. For that not to have even occurred to them, hey, what if they're both gone? Seems a little bit weird to me, particularly, again, if you are using the consensus board, if you are running simulations the way everyone is, like, how did that not come up at least once?
He thought they'd have at least one of them. But again, you're playing the odds. I think those are still favorable odds. And I think it would be, I don't know that it would have been a good pick to force Logan Jones or Jake Slaughter if you truly have the first round. Like, they're playing, I think they're playing it the right way if they truly have a first round grade on Zion. Now, where I want to talk to Eric personally is, like, I had, I was lower on Ioane and Young in both my numbers, and they love both of those picks in the first round. We'll see how it all plays out. But I think it would have been bad to force a starting center spot.
But that struck me as strange, the idea that that two guys that were ranked 93 and 95 on the consensus board might both be at a position where they're going to be seen as two of the top players at that position, would both be gone by the time pick, what was there, 80? Like, by the time pick number 80 rolled around. Like, that seems like something that should have come up as a scenario before you were.
Yeah, but even if it did, it's like you're still willing to do that. And now we'll see what happens here as far as center goes for this year. But, as someone who generally rails against picking for need, the downside is when you go in with a need and you don't get them. Now, look, there are post-draft options. There are trade options. There are other ways to fill roster spots in the short term, right, for this year. Do they need a long-term center? Still, absolutely. There are ways to do that. But the downside is you're sitting here like, man, we didn't get a starting center. Like, if someone else took Roger Rosengarten a couple of years ago and they did not have a starting right tackle after moving on from the great Morgan Moses, like, they could have been in trouble. But it did fall the right way a couple of years ago.
This is the argument I was trying to make during the draft for the Chargers, right? Like, we know that drafting for need is generally a bad thing to do because it's suboptimal. Because if you're drafting for need, A, you may be reaching on a player, and B, the opportunity cost, you're almost certainly missing out on who would just be the best player available because you're reaching for a need, right? So it's bad in two separate ways, potentially, for the team that's going in with a need. However, the original sin is not drafting for need. The original sin is going into the draft with an acute need that you need to fill and no obvious pathway to filling it, right? As you said, there's a second wave of free agency that you can potentially dip into. But if you've looked at that and there isn't a player in that group that you're comfortable starting, and you haven't found anybody in the first wave of free agency, and you've left yourself open to this kind of vulnerability, well, then you kind of have to draft for need, right? You've put yourself in that position. So drafting for need is bad, but the actual original problem may be further down the line, and not drafting for need may be even worse. So that's the problem that I have with some of these teams sometimes. It's not, we know that drafting for need is a bad thing in a vacuum, but the problem might be that not drafting for need in certain specific ways is even worse.
As I'm thinking through this too, Sam, sometimes the teams like the Rams, who we said I feel like could have started a game a couple weeks ago and would have been the best team in the NFL with no holes on their roster, their starting 22, or even the Jags, who maybe didn't have perceived needs. This reminds me of Kevin Cole's argument where he would say, I'm a big fan of you always defer because you want to have the ball in the second half, right? Mm-hmm. The psychology that Kevin Cole always brings up is if you know you're getting the ball in the second half, you're inherently more conservative at the end of the first half because you're like, hey, we're getting the ball, which is fair. But mathematically, I'd rather have extra possession in the second. Mathematically, I'd rather have my needs filled going into the draft. But do teams then say we've got all of our starters?
Now we can be crazy.
Well, that if you have all your starters filled, theoretically you're just best player available, go. Whether it's a center, edge, corner, it doesn't matter. But do teams start drafting for depth and saying, well, we have our starters, let's go get our developmental tight end. Let's go get our Y. Let's go get just an inline blocker. Let's go get just a special teams linebacker higher than you should. Does the psychology of having your roster in place actually make you worse drafting rather than, in the Ravens case, we need a center, we need this, and you end up taking better players? The Ravens aren't the example, but just having needs generally.
Yeah, or instead of drafting for depth, you are more willing to take swings on worse prospects with higher ceilings, theoretically, because you don't need them to play right away. Right. Because you have that flexibility of, we already have the roster set, so let's go get the guy that if he puts it all together, could be an all-pro in the third round. It's like, yeah, but I mean, what are the chances he puts it all together? Like, there's a reason this guy's in the third round, and maybe you should be taking a better player right now who would make a bigger impact in your team, unless this guy hits the top 95th percentile of his range of outcome. Like, do teams start taking effectively silly swings because they're seen as almost bonus picks?
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm a big believer in have your needs filled, but the second part of that is you have to stick to the true board.
Because we do that psychologically with teams that have multiple first-round picks. Like, wow, this one's a bonus. Let's go take a shot at a guy who could be a superstar. We wouldn't make that pick if it was your only pick in the first round.
I think there's something to that, though, like the diversifying of the portfolio. But
yeah, but if that's the thing. Is it the same psychology that if you suddenly have a complete roster, you're like, well, all of our picks can look like that. Let's go swing for the fences here.
The other part that I'm always interested in, so they asked DeCosta, like, hey, what did you reach your goals basically in the draft? He's like, yeah, we're trying to be more physical and this and that, and we did that with Ioane and Zion Young, especially at the top. How much does the draft board get altered by what you're trying to do that offseason? We want to be faster. We want to be more physical. And all of a sudden you're like, well, Brendan Thompson up because we want to be faster. Zion Young over this edge rusher who we think's better, but he's undersized and not as physical. Do your off-season goals for how you want your team to be made up actually affect how you move the players around the board?
Who was the team a few years ago that basically spent an entire offseason talking about getting tougher, and just everyone they brought in, whether it's free agency or the draft, was like toughness was the thing, and they were just almost straight garbage start to finish. Like, I forget who it was, but almost everybody they brought in was terrible.
One of the ones that stood out to me was the Packers drafting Josh Myers at center a couple of years ago, and he's never been a particularly good center, but he's been a starter. And it was in the division where Garrett Bradbury was undersized, and they were like, we just want to be bigger at center. And I was like, at the time, thinking, okay, so you just want a bigger center. It doesn't matter if he's that good or not. He's been okay as a starter, but they wanted to get bigger.
Before we go any further, we should shout out Mohall in the chat again with a super chat that we forgot to turn off. But May the 4th. It's May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. We went and watched Star Wars at the Symphony.
Oh, yeah?
Cincinnati Pops doing the Star Wars music.
Now, did they have were they playing the movie or just doing the music?
Just doing the music. Okay. So the conductor was awesome. He was like really into it. So he would turn around and be like, this is Yoda's theme, or this is my favorite, or this is from this movie, or whatever it was. They did well. It was fun.
We went to see a thing a while ago. It wasn't the symphony, but it was The Evil Dead, where the music was also done with like an orchestra. So it was like playing the movie, but then the music would be
taking
done
you
with
through
an orchestra and the thing. That was pretty cool.
This wasn't even completely chronological, but it was good. Kids were into it. All right. I ad-libbed on the DeCosta thing because I just thought it was fascinating. And it's not that I think he's had a pretty good run. Obviously, as general manager, the Ravens have been really good. I'm not even citing what he's saying as good, bad, or indifferent. He just talked. Yeah. He just opened up more than other GMs do. Right. I haven't been able to listen to some of the other GMs, but unpacking some of their strategies I think are fun. Other news that's happened in the last week: we got George Pickens signing his franchise tag, so he could either play football or perhaps be traded if needed. Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers put this UFA tender on him so that they put the tender on him so that they could get a comp pick if someone else swooped in to try to sign him.
Which doesn't seem likely. Basically seems like he's playing for them or not at all. I saw, did you see, there was some picture snapped of him somewhere in Jets gear. It just felt like a troll from Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's pretty hilarious. Steelers have declined the fifth-year option on Broderick Jones.
Yeah.
We should have some fifth-year option analysis maybe in the coming weeks once those – are those all finalized now?
Got to be, right?
Steelers have declined on Broderick. Not a huge surprise there. The Ravens have re-signed, brought back Calais Campbell on a one-year deal.
Love it. 40-year-old Calais Campbell.
Now, I've claimed him as a millennial hero. He is right on the cusp. This is how old we are. He's like right on the cusp as the youngest pure millennial.
Well, it depends if you recognize Zennial as a thing. If you don't recognize Zennial as a thing, he's not even close.
But I think he was born in 86, which is right on the cutoff, but I'm claiming him as a Zennial.
Right. But he has to be, there are people out there that don't even recognize Zennial as a thing. It goes from X to millennial.
77 to 85, the Zennial transition from X to millennial, where we had dial-up internet, we had rotary phones.
Yes.
We didn't grow up with a cell phone, but we did get it, either in high school or college. Right. We are the pure transitional generation here. We're claiming Calais as a Zennial with us.
As people that are right in that, I think it's important to recognize the existence of Zennials. I'm not standing for any Zennial erasure, but I'm just saying there are people out there that do. But yeah, Calais Campbell's, we'd have to talk to him, understand his journey through technology and figure out if he's a true Zennial.
If you got a cell phone in like third grade, then maybe he's out. But if he had to wait till high school or sophomore, junior year, maybe.
But the fact that he's still out there dominating as a 40-year-old is awesome.
I'm always good at getting the degrees of separation. My old teammate was his roommate at the U.
Of course.
So, of course.
The fifth-year option thing that we didn't cover that is way more, I think, relevant than Broderick Jones's bad player doesn't get fifth-year option picked up is Jack Campbell's discussion. Because Jack Campbell's was turned down because Jack Campbell is a linebacker and because the NFL system is still ridiculous, off-the-ball linebackers are all lumped together in the way they used to be with the old all-pro, Pro Bowl system. So Micah Parsons' astronomical contract is effectively pushing up Jack Campbell's fifth-year option number. And so if the Lions were to pick up his fifth-year option, they would be making him the best-paid off-the-ball linebacker in the NFL, which obviously they don't want to do. So they've declined his fifth-year option and will be trying to get a long-term contract done with him instead, which is just a dumb system.
And so this is very similar to Tyler Linderbaum last year, where all the
tackles were pushing his number up.
All of the offensive line contracts are just rolled in together, and so the fifth-year options depended on tackles, guards, and centers. So they didn't want to. Now look, last year at this time we said, of course they're going to get a deal done with Linderbaum, and they didn't. They were unable to come to terms. Obviously, we'll see what happens with the Lions, but yes, it's absurd.
Now,
from the old school 3-4 outside linebackers are lumped in with Jack Campbell, the off-ball linebacker.
On the one hand, this with Linderbaum and then maybe with Jack Campbell as well, these are things that are increasing the money going into players' pockets. So from that point of view, it's good, right? This is making the player more money, not the team, and that's a good way of doing these things. So I'm all for it in those terms. However, it's incredibly dumb. Right? We can agree on those two things being true at the same time. If this makes Jack Campbell more money, then good for him. But it's a dumb system that Micah Parsons, an edge rusher, his contract isn't in any way affecting true off-the-ball linebacker Jack Campbell's negotiation. Like, that's ridiculous.
So it affects the fifth-year option. It affects the franchise tag. Now, does it actually? Now, in Linderbaum's case, it made him more money because he ended up hitting the open market.
Yes.
And I guess in his case, so I guess in the player's case, you're always trying to avoid one-year deals. And the fifth-year option is essentially a one-year deal, right? It's the extra year. It's like a franchise tag.
Right.
The franchise tag is a one-year deal, so I'm just talking through this on air here. From a player perspective, you're avoiding the one-year deal, getting to free agency sooner, so theoretically it is better for the player.
And getting more guaranteed money.
Right. Logically, I wonder if owners would push back on this then, because for years we were like, man, players really need to move on this and change it. And it's like, well, not really.
Yeah. A, they don't care, and B, they have 58 other things to deal with.
They have way more to deal with, and it really only affects a handful of players every year.
Yes.
Right. So it's not worth bringing it to the table.
The only way this changes, this is the reason it's still stupid, is because it doesn't. The only people it inconveniences are people that it's too far down.
I wonder if the owners would bring it back the other way.
That's
and say,
the only way it changes.
Look, football's changed, and the owners have less to fight for. They're just trying to fight for more money. They just care about maximizing revenue. They'll give up practice time. They'll give up whatever. I do wonder if they would fight for this and say, this is absurd. We don't want to pay Jack Campbell, Micah Parsons money when he's playing a different position.
Mm-hmm.
So, that'll be interesting to see when the CBA.
And the reason you don't just pick it up automatically, even if it makes him the best paid linebacker in football for a year, is because it sets the number that they negotiate off as well, right? So even if you were like, okay, we don't want to pay Jack Campbell more money than Fred Warner for 1 year, but it's 1 year, what the hell? As soon as you pick it up, that's the number that his agents are using to negotiate the long-term contract with, right? They're like, well, you're paying us $21 million this year, so that's our number for 5 years, right? We're not. Why would we take a pay cut? So that's why they don't want to do that. They just they don't want that precedent put in place because obviously they don't want that number to be higher than it is.
A lot of Ravens news here, but they have also signed Diego Pavia as an undrafted free agent.
Yes. And the critical thing here is this is the new, have you noticed this? You know, the agent propaganda through the insiders?
Great propaganda.
It's all about, guaranteed numbers and the highest numbers you can do. What they're doing is, undrafted free agent signs 3-year deal with whoever, right? They're all 3-year deals. That's what undrafted contracts look like. It's just
but people buy into that. Wow, they must really like him. This isn't.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
A 1-year deal. It's a 3-year deal.
This is why this stuff is a problem, because this is propaganda. Is it state-sponsored propaganda on a level that changes the reality of the world? No, but this is propaganda. It is a deliberate, slanted piece of information that is being simply relayed to you because journalists are not doing their job. They're just copying and pasting what they're being sent by agents. And the agent knows that if I say this is a 3-year deal, that makes me look good to prospective clients going forward because they think, oh, look, even if I'm an undrafted free agent, this guy can get me a 3-year deal. They're all 3-year deals. It's the same deal that he would sign for anybody.
What's the next layer? They've got to be racking their brain this offseason. What's the next layer of propaganda? Like Diego Pavia is going to sign with the Ravens. Included in the deal
and also, by the way,
is multiple jerseys.
This is how you know it's stupid because he doesn't have an agent, right? He's working for himself.
No, he does have an agent.
Does he? I thought the whole thing was Gruden, I'm not letting anybody take my money.
No, but that was PFT misinterpreting what he said because he was just talking about college and college agents, and I think he's got it.
Well, either way, everyone gets a 3-year deal. So whether he negotiated himself and this is just the deal everybody gets, or whether he had an agent and he got a 3-year deal because everybody gets a 3-year deal.
The next level of propaganda is going to be the perks that come with the deal. So he's going to get his own locker. He's going to get multiple jerseys, home and away, multiple pairs of pants.
Youth large.
He's going to get free food when at the facility. Like, those are the things we're going to add. Like this, how'd you pull that off, agent? How'd you get his own locker?
Did you see there was a Ted and Wynn, I think, tweeted it, that it was just a 10-second clip of him doing a couple of drills, right? And he went up under center and then dropped back in a shotgun and took this. When he went under center, I mean, he's genuinely taken the hand off at chest height. It's amazing. He's so small. It's unbelievable.
Perfectly fine. He's had a lot of success.
But quarterback,
see what happens.
Peyton Manning walks up under center, leans down, bends over to put his arms under his center's ass, right? Pavia walks up and just basically stands there, and it's like chest height. He's like this. It's nuts.
Let's see how he does.
He's so small.
I was going to add something to this. I don't remember. Oh, there was also, I think there was a really fake Instagram post that was going on.
Oh, yeah, after the draft where people tweeted out that he seemed upset, but it wasn't him.
I'm just encouraging everybody that has the standard-looking headshot with NCAA in the back or NFL in the back. Like, if you've never heard of the guy, maybe don't.
But you've never heard half the people on the internet. It's just so annoying.
I'm asking everybody to spend the millisecond to click on someone's profile.
I hate it.
In the profile that went viral, it says parody in all caps.
Right, but
it takes a second.
But you have to do that now for every tweet you've done, in the world, right? I hate the idea that you now have to go and check that what you're seeing is not true, but is actively somebody out there. It's just, these are the people, the worst form of humanity, right? It's the fake parody Twitter accounts that bring nothing to the world other than a fake. It's not funny. It's just a fake piece of news, right? They're the same people as the people that create computer viruses, right? It's like, and not the ones that like steal money from people where there's actually a purpose to it.
At least there's a goal there, right? At
The
least you're
ones
trying
that
to make
just
some
like,
money.
remember the old school computer viruses where it's like, if you click on this, it like opens up a thing that eats your desktop or whatever. Now your computer's bricked. Those people. That is the worst form of human scum.
No
where it's
benefit.
like your thing, it does nothing other than destroy. It has no purpose other than to ruin things or the like. That guy. Here's the thing. You want to go taking swipes at people that are way bigger than we are. Have you ever heard of a YouTuber called Whistling Dixie?
No.
Whistling Diesel. Whistling Diesel.
Still no.
Huge YouTuber, right? And his thing is he just like destroys cars and things, right? I saw him recently. He got, those Marty McFly Back to the Future sneakers, like the ones from the 2015 or whatever. It's now 10 years in the past. Hyper futuristic laces that they cost like 30 grand or whatever. Like he bought a set of those and was just like pouring engine oil on them. It's like just to destroy them. You're like, what?
He must be making good money on YouTube, though.
He makes a fortune. Huge YouTuber.
Good
it's
for
like,
him.
but it's just wanton destruction for no purpose. Like I'm buying a thing of which there is a limited number, and even if the price of this thing is absurd, I'm buying it just to destroy it. I find that fairly contemptible. I don't really
but at
have
least
any.
you're feeding your family. Your original point is, if you're going to be a hacker, feed your family. At least make some money. At least exploit some
steal
people
money out of people
for
with it.
some money.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a hacker just to destroy things, then you're just
I just
slime.
don't. I don't
Filthy,
like.
dirty,
Yes.
despicable.
I don't like this thing where there's
At least feed your family.
there's nothing constructive for it. It's just wanton destruction for no purpose. Right. I find that very.
At least try to hack my bank account and
Right.
not just blow up my
At least
computer.
go fishing and try and get some money out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All good. And we've already touched on Malik Willis's first pitch. We already
Yep.
baked that into
We
the
need
show.
we need to send a happy birthday message to Ben Stockwell, former PFF legend, current Teamworks legend, of course.
Oh, Teamworks Ben. Yeah, that's right.
So,
happy birthday,
happy
Ben.
birthday,
that's right.
Benjamin.
May the 4th, Ben. I wonder if I bet he could take some time off now.
He is. He's doing all kinds of stuff.
Happy
Hell of a vacation schedule as Benjamin got.
birthday, Ben.
Well,
Sent.
I don't have time for you to text him on the
Sure
show.
do. We just did.
No.
We just did. It's the off season. It is the off season, so we're back to our off season schedule. Monday, 9 a.m., Thursday, 9 a.m. Hit us up with some off season ideas, things you want to hear and see from us.
Yeah, we got way more time to engage with the mailbag now. So any good emails sent in, we may read out in the show, engage with, do whatever. So check the mic at the33rdteam.com is the email address to send us stuff.
We got to go over the rest of the draft bets, too. Some people have already conceded and sent emails. We should go through the list and see who won and lost and who we owe some merch to and everything.
Right.
So we'll go through that maybe Thursday as well. All right. That it for us? Mm-hmm. Appreciate everybody for being here, for tuning in. We'll see you again Thursday. More Check the Mic.